This is my 2011 Chevy Equinox. If you clicked on the video, you're having some hard shifts. This is also the V6. So what I'm going to show you in this video is one, where the TCM is, the transmission control module, and there are some pressure switches inside this TCM that have laminated discs, and I'll show you those right here in just a second. But anyway, there's this kit right here. It comes with new grommets. You can see back here these little laminated discs. So what happens over time is the transmission fluid, I believe, breaks down these laminated discs, and this is what causes the pressure switch to activate once the pressure is high enough. And if these are dissolved, then it doesn't get the right pressure and you get the hard shifts. So we're going to be replacing what I believe is going to be deteriorated discs in this transmission control module. I will put a link in the description below for this kit. It's an installation kit as well as the laminated discs and the grommets. So we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple things you're going to want to know. One, where the TCM is. Two, a 10mm is going to be a good friend of yours. And three, how to get the battery out. So here we go. So here we are at the top of the engine, and I'm pointing my light at the transmission fill tube. You can see it right there. So the TCM is mounted to the transmission right here. So in order to get down here, we're going to have to clear this area, which means the battery is going to have to come out. And you'll see there's some clips here to hold this panel. There is a bracket that comes up under here. So I'm going to start by pulling this loose. We'll get this cover off and we'll get the battery out. All right, you can see we've got a 10mm bolt here, but we're going to get this plastic cover off. So now that we have this off, we have a 10mm bolt right here. We've got this one. We've also got one here for the battery tie down, but I'm going to start with this one. We'll get the ECM out of the way. Now we can get the battery tie down out of the way, which will be this 10mm and this 10mm. I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to do this, so I don't want to forget where these bolts came from. So I'm going to put them right back where they came from. I think at this point we can take the negative terminal loose. I'll need a wrench for the positive. Okay, we've got the negative off. Alright, the battery is loose. I'm going to go ahead and grab this handle here and pull it up and out. So now that the battery's out, you can see the battery tray is still going to impede us from getting to the transmission control module. I believe these are 12mm, but we do still have a 10mm here and one that holds this AC line on, and then we can take this portion of the battery box out and then we can get to these. I told you those were 12s, they're actually 13. Okay, battery tray's out. And at this point, I'm not sure what else we need to remove. I think this bracket here is gonna be next, and it looks like we've got a 13 millimeter right here. Another one you can see right there. And then, if you look real close, you can see one there, and I'm gonna guess there's another one. Yep, another one right there. I did replace this mount right here, this engine mount. Actually, I think it's called transmission mount, but I did replace this, and I did not remove this, but I did remove this piece right here, which unbolts right here. So I'm going to start with that, and then these two bolts, and then see what it takes to get to those. So just like changing the engine mount, there's some areas where you can't get a ratchet head in, and this appears to be another one of those spots. So we're going to see what we can do with a ratcheting wrench. If you watch down here in this hole, you can see that we got my wrench on the bolt here. I'm just going to go ahead and keep working on this one, and then I'll move to the next one. Alright, you can see here where I've got the wrench. This is the only opening that I can see, unless I had an extended reach, and then I might be able to, you know, come back here. But again, I don't think I have the depth for a ratchet, so I'm just gonna get this bolt out. So one good thing is once you break them loose, or at least on this one, they seem to be turning out pretty easy. I have a feeling putting them in, it's going to be a different story, but I'll take this while I can get it. Alright, so I got two of the difficult ones. Now we're going to move to these top ones. Alright, so hopefully there wasn't a bolt hiding anywhere, and this bracket should come out. There we go. Let's take a look at the bolt locations that I was just working on. So this was the back one I was just working on, and this one here is the front one, and you can see how there was really no way I was going to get any ratchets in there. So here at this point we can see this is the transmission control module. Well, I say that it's actually in behind this panel, I believe. And again, 10 millimeters are going to be our friend, but at this point I'm going to jack up the car. I'm going to drain the transmission fluid, and then we can start messing with the stuff up here. So I'll come back once I get this jacked up and have room to drain the fluid. Alright, so we have the vehicle jacked up. We'll take a quick look here. Just want to show you, this will be the drain plug for the transmission fluid. This is the front cover where the transmission control module is behind here. And I think earlier I showed you this clip, the plug where it plugs in. So I'm going to go ahead and start draining. And this is looking like maybe a 12 millimeter, maybe an 11. Okay, so that's an 11 millimeter. Anytime you're using a drain pan like this, you want to make sure you pull this out. Seems like common sense, but I seem to forget it quite often. I guess before I do this, you know, there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, never change your transmission fluid." I don't want to give my. I just don't see the problem with doing it. I'm not doing a flush. This is just a drain, and then we're going to take the TCM out. But anyway, if you're one of those people that thinks you shouldn't change your transmission fluid, well, maybe you shouldn't, but you will have some leak out of here when you take the cover off. Alright, I'm going to let this drain for a little bit, and once it's done draining, I'll reinstall the transmission drain plug, and then we'll start pulling these bolts out. And since I'm already down here, I'm going to go ahead and start down here. And I don't think this has to be empty. I think it's low enough now that it's not going to hurt anything if I start pulling these bolts. Alright, at this point I'm going to go ahead and put this plug back in. I will get the torque specs on this. But for the moment, I'm just going to snug it. Alright, I've got the 4 bottom bolts out. You can see it's starting to drip a little bit here. But the next thing I want to focus on is getting the plug unplugged from the actual transmission control module. And I don't know if I can. Okay. So right here, there's an orange strap right here. I'm going to try and get that disengaged. Okay. And I think right here on the front, that has to be pushed down while pushing back. So I'm not sure if I can do this one-handed or not. Alright, I'm gonna try from the top side. I'm gonna use maybe a screwdriver. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I used this to push down on this little tab right here and then pulled, and that disconnects the plug. Okay. So now I'm going to continue removing the bolts. Okay. That one is the one we're trying to get. And then here we can see the other ones. I'm going to put a swivel on ratchet and get these out. I'm going to go ahead and just do that off camera real quick. So this one's on a stud. I know I can get a ratchet on this one, but I don't have a deep well out. Feels like the whole stud's coming out, not just the nut. Okay, so that's what I've just pulled out. And we need to remember that was the second one down on the right side. And the remaining two we'll have to get from the bottom. But this is going to be difficult to record. I will show you. So that bottom one is a studded one, and then the one above it, I just need to be able to get on there, and I'm using a 1/4 inch deep well, and I'm gonna use your help remembering that the studded one goes right beside the motor mount. Yeah, so this one's just a little finicky, but it's okay. It's broke loose. It's coming out. Okay, got that one. Now the studded one is also broke loose. It is the last one to come out. And this socket has a spring-loaded magnet in here, so I'm going to grab just a regular deep well. Alright, final bolt. So let's see what kind of action we get here. I'm going to try to pull this and see if we get some drainage. Alright, I'm going to pull the dipstick just to make sure it's not getting stuck on anything. Right up here you can see that it's starting to separate, so we're going to help it. I can't tell exactly, but it looks like maybe it's getting stuck around that plug. This is a transmission coolant line that I am kind of fighting here, so I'm going to take that loose right here, pull this up, and I bet that'll get us loose enough to get this out. Alright, this one's a little oxidized on, so we're just going to do some little tapping. Alright, just real quick, I'm going to go down and see if I can pull this cover down instead of off. I don't know. So this is a little bit of, I'll show you once I get this out of here. So what I was getting hung up on is this hose right here, which is a transmission fluid cooler line. So the fluid goes from the transmission to the radiator and gets cooled. But anyway, that's what I was getting stuck on, where it hits up against here. So from the underneath I was able to push on it and then push that up, and then I was able to get it out. So the next thing we need to do is remove the transmission control module, which I believe is this right here, this whole section, the brown section. So I'll get a diagram up on which bolts to remove to get that out, and then we'll proceed. Now that we have this cover off, I'm going to go ahead and unplug all the electrical connections going to the, I believe this is the, right here, the brown plastic is the transmission control module. So I'm going to go ahead and unhook the two clips on top, and I'll also pre the wire that way as well. And once we have all the plugs unplugged, we'll start removing some bolts. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any good information earlier today on which bolts to remove, so I think I'm just going to follow what I believe to be, I believe anything that holds this in, this first layer of metal, I believe that's going to be what we're trying to remove. So. And I think I've got one more on the bottom. Okay. See if this changes things. think we got one more bolt on the bottom somewhere. All right, looks like we should be ready to remove this. All right, I think it's ready to come out. All right, we got the long bolts out, and I just got one more shorter one holding the top end. Here we go. So I want to put these back how they came out. All right, here's what we got. This is the transmission control module. I'm going to take a photograph of these bolts as they are in here so I know how they go back. Then we will flip it over and start doing an inspection. Here I'm taking these bolts out and putting them in a piece of cardboard as they come out. And I tried to somewhat match the pattern, just basically for reference. Alright, so now that we have all the bolts, I will set these aside. So, let's turn this over and see if we can see anything good or bad. Alright. Kinda what I wanted to see. Kinda didn't want to see, but either way, at least we have confirmation. So as you can see, these little laminated discs, this one's destroyed, this one's out of place, this one looks okay, but I am glad to see this. I'm gonna see what it takes to get these out. Yeah, let me clear off a spot. We'll sit down and take a quick look at these and maybe get them replaced. I thought this was actually a different style, but either way, we'll get these out and see if the kit that I have will work with it. Let's take a quick look here. Like I already showed you, this disc is one to come out. This one's, these three are in bad shape. This last one looks like it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and start trying to get these out. Alright, so what I can see, this piece of disc, this grommet seems okay, but in here, that disc is still in here, the outer edge of it. So it tore through. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that where I moved it. Yeah, so it just keeps going back and forth. So, I need to find a way to get on this. So we'll just move on to the next one. Same thing with this one. The center of that disc came out. Be taking this one out too, for good measure. Since this one's fully intact, we'll have to a little tricky, but I think we'll, there we go. So you can see what a complete one looks like versus these that were torn. Alright, so we got that one out. We need to work on getting the remaining pieces out of here. I think I got that one out. Don't know where it went, but okay. Got that one more. Alright, got the last one out. Move right along. Make sure these are all good. So in this kit, I'll put everything out that we got. Maybe I didn't want to do that. So it comes with 5 grommets and I think 5 laminated discs. So there's 10 total, and I did read some reviews that they were thin. So I'm curious. I'm going to grab some calipers. I'm going to measure the old ones versus the new ones. Alright, so here is one of the old ones. We got over 200,000 miles on this one, so we're looking at 7.5 thou. That's the old one, and we'll take a new one. And this is 5.5 thou. So I'm going to do some research and see if we need to double these up. So I took a measurement of the one that was still good, and that one measured 5.5 thou, and we're pretty close, so I'm just going to do the single. And if you noticed, when these came out, they came out with this flange at the bottom, and I think there's a couple ways we could put these in. I think we could put them in where you take it and fold it like that, put it down in there, and obviously this goes in after the laminated disc, but anyway, there's a tool that came with this kit, so we're probably going to use it just for the sake of using it. We'll go ahead and start getting the laminated discs in. I've never done this before, so I have no idea what it's going to take to put them in there. Might actually be what this tool is for. Here you can see we got this one in, and I'll go ahead and get the other 3 in place. What I'm doing is kind of folding it in half like this. Well, not in half, but cupping it, and then I can get one end started into that groove, and then we can push it down in there, and since we've got an edge already in there, I can get this started like that and just kind of work around. Okay, that one's in place. One thing I will show you too, on if you accidentally knock out this plastic piece, it's not a big deal, and you can just put it back in there. All right, got this last one. So now it's time to install these grommets. To install these grommets, you take this tool, and you can see this is a pusher. Put the grommet in here, you can see the flange is out. We'll take this tool here and work we're going to work it to where this flange is down in here. I think I may have goofed up. I'm going to try this. I might have to redo it, no big deal. But you just put it down the hole there. Yeah, so that didn't work. Not surprised though. I'll try again. Alright, this looks a whole lot better. So you can see how the flanges in there are cupped. Try this again. So we're pushing down on this. Now we're pushing here and then pulling up on the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna do the next one, see how it goes. And it looks like the way this tool works is, I think you can just push it. Maybe work it around a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we're holding this steady. We're gonna push. I think we're in good shape. It seems to be working as planned. One thing I just figured out is if like you can see that this isn't in here perfect. If you just take your finger over the top, push this plunger up, you can get it to seat nice and even. So I'm trying to explain what I'm feeling. So I'm going to push on this, and I can actually feel it slip out. So right there, I heard it, I felt it. Now I just lift this up, and we're in business. All right, got one more left. Okay, we're in. Even it up. Well, I feel pretty confident about this. Everything seems to be in place and looking good. we're ready to put this back in, and I'm confident that this was the issue for my transmission slipping. Alright, now that we've finished this, it's time to put this back in. Time to reinstall the TCM. I'm just gonna take our bolts here. I'm gonna start with this top one and just use it to get lined up. So I think I'm going to try and get these from the bottom. I think they'll be easier. Get these wires plugged back in. Alright, I'm going to go through and hand tighten these, and then we'll come back. I couldn't find torque specs on them, so I'm going to do the best I can not to over tighten them, but when I was taking them off, I was able to break them loose with the battery powered ratchet, which doesn't have much torque at all. So I'm just going to take it easy and just tighten it until it feels right. Now that we have the TCM back in, it is time to put the transmission pan back on, which is really just the cover that goes over the TCM. And I think this might be a bit of a struggle, but we're just gonna see what happens. Alright, well, like most everything else, I'm going to go to the bottom and see if I can pull this down. Since I'm down here, I'm going to go ahead and start some bolts. Alright, at this point I'm going to go ahead and get these tightened up and then we'll come back. I have the cover reinstalled, torqued down, and now it's time to fill it up. One thing that we need to do is get underneath the vehicle. I'll show you the setup that I've got to get fluid back in. It's a little tricky to get to from the top. You can see we got a line right here in the way. So here's the setup. It is a 5-gallon bucket with a pump on the top. There's a hooked end I'll be running from the bottom, which actually is what makes this a little easier to use. And this is Dextron 6, or Dexron 6. And you can obviously see I got it from O'Reilly. So I'm going to get situated under the car and show you the things you need to know under there. Here we are under the vehicle, and you can see the drain plug where I drained the transmission fluid. And the internet will tell me if I'm wrong about this, but right up here you can see another bolt, and I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to start filling this up until we get fluid out of here. I'll put this back in, we'll check the fluid level, but I believe this is going to be how we know it's full. So we'll put fluid in it until we get fluid coming out of that hole, and we'll put the plug back in, and then we'll check and make sure that it's good on the dipstick. If not, it's going to get us close, and I know that because when I had this cover off and I put the drain plug in, I could see where it was, and it wasn't too far up. So we will go that route and see what happens. We're not going to hurt anything by doing this method. We might just have a little less than what we need. So worst case, we're a little short, we had some, we keep checking the dipstick. Everything I found online, everybody just said use the dipstick, and they also would measure the amount of fluid they got when they drained the fluid. I did not. This drain pan makes it difficult to do that, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward with this method. And this is an 11 millimeter, just like the drain plug. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that removed, and then I'll route the hose for the transmission fluid. Alright, so at this point it looks like we're full on the dipstick. I wasn't able to actually see it come from that drain hole. So I'm going to go ahead and put the drain plug back in. The fluid is filled now, and it is time to put the plug back in. Alright, I'm going to work with the routing of it, and I'll come right back. Alright, if you get to the same point like I did and you're struggling a little bit, just make sure that this this plug and the wire actually runs under the two transmission cooler lines. Just make sure it goes under the two transmission cooler lines. Now we should be pretty good. When you're ready to put this plug back on, make sure the gray slide is all the way away from the wire. Sorry about covering the light. Okay, and as we are on there, we're started, and then as we pull this back, you can see it actually push on and lock into place. And put this orange tab back in. Alright, so we should be good here. I'm going to double check the fluid level, and then if we're good there, we can start putting all the components back on to get the car put back together. We have fluid on here. See what happens. We'll put it back in, double check. Well, it looks like we're in a good spot. I'll go ahead and put everything back together. We'll get it started, take it for a drive, and see how things are doing. Alright, so it's time to start putting back the bracket that goes here, that holds the battery tray, that holds everything that's in the way of actually getting to this. And you can see those parts here. So I'm going to start with putting this one back. So this will go in this orientation here. See our holes line up there. We've got a 10 millimeter here. I'll get that out. But I'll come back once I get these bolts back in. Just want to show I've got this bracket in. It's secure. Got all 4 bolts back in. This one back here, you know, you might be tempted to leave that one out because it's hard to get to, but it's worth putting in. They are all back in, and now I'm going to start putting the battery tray in, and I'll come back once it's in place. The video is getting kind of long, so if you want to see how this came out, so you can see how it goes back in, just refer to the beginning of the video and you will find it there. But I'll come back once I have the battery tray back in place. Alright, so you can see the battery tray is back in place. Alright, I'm happy with that, and with that I'm going to put the battery in. Alright, if you are at all struggling to get this positive battery cable to come a little further up, there is a clip right here that I'm going to release, and I'll put it back once the battery is in place. But with that, we have a lot more room to deal with. Alright, now that I have a little more slack here, I'm going to go ahead and put the battery in. As you can see, everything's back together. I'm ready to go ahead and start it and take it for a drive. I'm not going to be able to get it in this video, but alright, we got everything buttoned up. So alright, here you can see everything is buttoned up, ready to go. So I'm going to put everything, here you can see everything is buttoned up, ready to go. I'm going to end the video here, but I will be in the comments if you have any questions. I'm very confident that this is going to take care of the hard shift issue that I had. As you can see, everything's back together. As you can see, everything's back together. I'll take it for a drive. I will check the codes. I'll put it on screen. Here you can see everything's back together. I will take it for a drive, and then I'll report back as to whether or not the codes came back. Obviously, with the battery being unhooked for a while, and then we cleared the codes. I just got back from driving the Equinox, and it's shifting a whole lot better. I took it for a little drive, let it get warmed up, and then I topped off the transmission fluid. Now it shifts like a dream. The next big item I want to tackle on this is the timing chains. So if you have the 3 liter or the 3.6 and you think you need to do timing chains and you think you might have the capability to do it, I'll be doing that in the future. So if you want, you can subscribe, and when that video comes out, you'll see that. I've got a lot of Equinox content and then a lot of different content, so feel free to check out the channel. And I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer whatever I can, and hopefully some people in the comments can chime in and answer any questions that I can. Thanks for watching.